Welcome to the Defy Report. I'm your host, Danial, and today I have with me Farrukh. How are you doing, Farrukh?
I'm doing good, Danielle. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. I can't complain. So we have a couple few interesting topics to discuss today. I guess let's start with the CFPB and how what's so interesting that's happening with the CFPB is that lawmakers are potentially considering actually defunding the CFPB altogether. And then therefore the regulations regarding student loans would then also possibly be adjusted under this administration. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this because, that's a very, very interesting piece of news to come out just in this past week. And it has so many implications across the board for well, not just ISA holders, but or potential ISA holders, but student loan holders. What happens to those loans, right? So just want to let's start there and let's see what your take is there.
Sure. I mean, first, let's just create some awareness around what the CFPB is. So, CFPB is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and it was created to protect consumers from predatory lending and other practices that are deemed to be harmful to the consumer. And CFPB has been around for some time now, and under the Biden administration, they actually came down pretty hard, created some headwinds around income share agreements as well. They basically said income share agreements are the same as loans, and they're going to treat them as loans, meaning lending laws and regulations would apply, like truth in lending and so on. So that's something we had to deal with for a while. And then obviously now with the Trump administration, they're focused more on deregulation versus regulation, I believe. So they're basically trying to defunct the CFPB and amongst other things as well. But I think recently, earlier in the year, the Supreme Court actually upheld CFPB funding. But now I think Trump administration and their lawyers are kind of coming out with another angle. Basically, they're arguing that the CFPB funding, which is Fed-based, is unconstitutional to begin with. So let's see how, all the dust settles and what happens. But certainly what we have seen in the Trump administration is that the CFPB has experienced a cutback, staff shortages. I think a lot of people were laid off and so on, and a lot of the regulations or enforcement actions that they put into place during the Biden administration have been pulled back. So this is something that for consumers is a concern. But what really bothers me, Danielle, is just like it's like ping pong, right? One
Yeah.
administration likes something, the other administration shoots it back the other way, and then the next administration is going to come and come at it the other way. And so there's no real clarity, there's no stability, there's no way for these organizations to really make sure that they are in it for the long haul and addressing consumer protections for the long haul. Because if
Mm,
it's just a matter of ping pong going back and forth, then nothing's really going to stick.
mm,
Like enforcement actions have come in, now they're going away. Now something else will come in, and maybe that will go away. And that's what really bothers me. Like consumers are always um, just kind of stuck hanging
yeah.
in the wind without any real clarity. And that's why I think what we're doing with the finance and other responsible players in the financial services industry, to a great degree, we have to self-regulate. We have to make sure that we do things in a way that is ethical, that is fair, and that's something that we're seriously committed to. I always believe that we like our floor or was much above what the CFPB was saying anyway. Like we're dealing with things in a way which are much better than typically you find in lending in terms of what the income share agreement is and how we've designed it and how we protect our consumers. So honestly, I'm not as concerned, but I think generally speaking, for the consumers in the United States, this is an issue, and this is something where our government needs to come down with rules that can stick from one administration to the next.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern is that those people who already have student loans on variable rates, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but those who are going to get student loans in the future, more than likely, if the CFPB is defunded and they're unable to regulate this market properly, is that people will begin to suffer quite critically, right? And this leads to then the other piece of this, which is, if that happens to be the case, and the student loans are going to be completely privatized, right? And now you're having, the sale of student loans out to Wall Street.
Or at least being considered.
Yeah.
Let's see if it
Yeah.
actually
Considered,
happens.
considered, considered, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and you're talking about the federal student loan portfolio.
yes.
The private stuff is probably already being sold in Wall Street and stuff, but the federal stuff.
Hmm. And that's scary because then it makes me think like, is this going to be like another 2008, right? You have so many people with student loan debt, and instead they don't have a physical asset that they can rely or go back on, but it's just debt that's accumulated due to education. There's no tangible asset that's backing it. So would this be potentially worse if this were to, explode? It's just, one of the concerns that does exist in this particular scenario. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, a lot of lawmakers, like Senator Warren and Representative Presley and others, have raised concerns about this, right? Because their take is, what if the consumer protections that are built into some of the federal student loans, like for example, not having to pay or interest being subsidized while you're studying, and other things that are baked in, what if they're stripped away? And honestly, I don't know how they would structure this, but I would assume that whatever loan that the student took out, the provisions of that loan will still apply. And if that's the case, that maybe it's not a horrible thing, but at the end of the day, who knows what happens, right? When it goes to the private market and when stuff is being sold, like you mentioned, all kinds of stuff happened during the mid 2000s that led to uh, the real estate bubble bursting and the mortgage bubble bursting and it leading to this massive financial crisis. And a lot of people even point to student debt as the next bubble, quote unquote. So this is where I think alarms are being raised. But again, but then ultimately we'll see what happens. And I think this is still being considered or discussed, and it's not, and we're
mhm,
not saying that this is something that's final, whatever. But the important thing is to make sure that borrower protections are not stripped. And
mhm,
that is super important, right? To make sure that whatever protections are built in. And again, I will say that with what we're doing with the income share agreements is a much higher bar to begin with. If
yeah,
income share agreements were ever to be sold in private markets, well, they're private anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But all the protections will still be intact because the agreements themselves are structured in a way to protect consumers. And I think that's the important point to remember is that we need to design solutions that protect consumers and place consumers first, always.
totally agree. And leaning into, I guess, our second topic of conversation for this evening, one of the things I had noticed earlier was that inflation data, unfortunately, was not released in October CPI or Consumer Price Index inflate report, and the jobs report was completely skipped, which I think maybe due to either the government shutting down for a little while, or we could be a bit more cynical here, maybe, and say that maybe the numbers were really that bad. Who knows? Um,
Well, didn't President Trump fire someone that was releasing these numbers earlier because he didn't
yeah,
like them?
I,
I
I,
forget the name of the the person, but I
I,
believe he did go
it's-
after somebody
I,
in that regard.
yeah, and
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, Daniel.
yeah,
Let's just say that, government shutdown equals no
no.
economic data. Let's blame the shutdown. But
Why can't we be cynical? Come on.
I think we're also being cynical. Or maybe both factors contributed to it to some
Both
degree.
factors can probably
But certainly, yeah, we don't have clarity on inflation data for
yeah,
October because of this, even though some of the private reporting says that inflation is still around where it was. So hopefully maybe there's not a big concern, but it's never good when there's lack of transparency
Oh, of
because it
course.
creates all kinds of doubts.
But there was, I mean, there was, I guess the benefit here is that there were some private agencies that were doing some math, and they're saying that inflation still stayed around 3%. But if you look at an aggregate of for the whole year, it's almost a 10% decline in our dollar, meaning that for every dollar at the beginning of January, it now will cost you $1.10 to buy that same thing theoretically. So even if the numbers are not released, we are still feeling it in our pockets. Um,
Yeah, and that's why, for the people that are investors, they really need to make sure they focus on investments that outpace inflation, right? To make sure that they are getting a return on their dollars and that inflation is not eating away at the returns that they are receiving. So, obviously we have the fund and our fund is in double digits, which is great. So it certainly is a good hedge against inflation as well as other things such as market volatility and interest rate volatility and so on. But this is something that, all kinds of investors need to make sure that their portfolios are diversified and they're staying ahead of any inflationary issues.
I mean, one other outside of those economic indicators, one of the other pieces, although the labor report did not release unemployment or any other piece of information, there was another private organization that had released some information and stating that, that unemployment has remained steady at 3.9%. But layoffs in like the tech sector, like Amazon laid off 14,000 workers, UPS has laid off people. Mainly, you're seeing a lot of the cuts in the tech industry, strangely enough, and not in any other sectors. Um, and then Goldman Sachs is estimating that October payrolls may have even declined to a degree, mainly because maybe we're seeing contraction in the economy. But it would seem, I guess that would make sense. November, December would probably be the heavy months, right? Where consumer spending would go to the roof. So you would see maybe the other reason is that a lot of these companies are trying to bolster their Wall Street numbers, right? They cut down the expense, say they save 2, 3 months of salary, although they're paying the severances, and they'll report a beautiful core fourth quarter. And maybe that's good for them, but it's not good for the average consumer, right? The people who are working, prayers with them, obviously, because it may be a tough time for them, and definitely for sure. And that leads me to our third topic, which is the rise of the gig worker, right? We're seeing a lot of people actually go into gig work, and actually in large droves, Uber, DoorDash, freelancing. People are earning anywhere from 50 to 60% of their prior wages in some cases, sometimes even lower, just depending on what it is. Um, and in total, so far, up to I think probably early October, late September, it was reported that was roughly 1.1 million layoffs in 2025, driving so many people into gig work and now probably unemployment is also being underreported as a result because now after 2, 3 months of collecting unemployment, they can't collect anymore, right? So now the real unemployment number is probably way higher than that 3.9% that I had quoted earlier. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, look at how many companies started in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, like, Airbnb and Uber and so many others, which have given opportunities for gig work and side income and freelancing opportunities. So thank goodness for the internet. Thank goodness for all this innovation that came out of the last crisis. And without all this gig work, imagine if this was not around, what would be going on, right? If people were not able to supplement their income in this way, right? Imagine what would be happening in the economy. So perhaps, like there's a whole new way of looking at numbers anyway, because we have to kind of factor in gig work and more people going into it. And obviously, as time goes on, more of the digital natives, the millennials and Gen Zs are growing up and becoming adults and are able to kind of partake in this gig economy where previous generations didn't have exposure to such economy to begin with. And I think that is having a huge impact, maybe from an economic or economist perspective. There's a whole new way, or there should be a whole new way of analyzing all of this and seeing how this all factors into the overall economic outlook, which again impacts inflation and so many things too. Because if people are spending and more spending is happening because of gig work and different things, then that is having an impact on everything across the board, from inflation to unemployment to to you name it, right? To job creation, to people starting their own businesses. So many things are impacted. So to me, it's just so fascinating. But what I would say is keep at it, because I think if
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to earn more income, then you should take advantage of that and make sure you not only earn more income, but I think the other thing would be, save and start to invest and really start to build a nest egg because with the economy and what's going on, who knows what happens next, what crisis comes. So I think the more people can take advantage of these types of opportunities, the better.
Mhm. I mean, one of the other ideas that came in my mind is, you know what, the ISA is so beautiful in this respect because it allows you, like, even I mean, it's because it's a percentage of your income, right? That's like if you have steady Uber income, like you'd be able to pay off your debt rather than have it accumulate. And and the other thing is because it's not accumulating or gaining interest over time, it just makes it even more, I guess, amazing in that sense.
Yeah, and,
But yeah,
and with an ISA, obviously there's no debt, but you can actually accelerate the ISA by making extra payments and ending the contract sooner, which some of our customers have already done. So gig work will allow you to do that as well, right? Is to have more income, disposable income that you can use to do that. And we kind of touched upon the ISA and also the fund, but here we can also talk about Grow, which is the new thing that we're launching, right? Which is our online digital platform, and sooner or later it'll be an app as well, which stands for Guidance and Resources for Optimizing Wealth. And one of the aspects there is going to be gig work, is going to be to expose people to gig work opportunities, freelancing opportunities, teach people how to become, start their own businesses, create secondary income sources for themselves. So this is something that we believe strongly in. We're going to focus on this as time goes on. And we'd love to hear from people about their success stories when it comes to gig work and what kind of stuff is out there and what other people can benefit from too. I think that's going to be huge. Where, at the end of the day, to me, the ethos of everything that we're doing is about all of us coming together to help each other.
yeah,
Whether it's the ISA, whether it's the fund investing in each other, whether it's something like Grow and helping each other to build wealth together. Because ultimately, I don't, or at least I want to say, let me put it positively, I believe that it's possible to win and to win together. Like my victory shouldn't be your loss, right? We can both win together. I think that's the ethos of what we're trying to do. And I hope that over time people see that and people come to Defynance and help us grow so we can help everyone grow.
for sure. Absolutely. I guess that's a wrap for the DeFi report. Again, if any of you that are watching, please follow us on socials, on LinkedIn, on whatever platform you like to follow people on. And if you have a story that you want to share with us, put it down in the comment section down below or reach out to us at the email that's going to be listed down in the comment section. And we look forward to seeing you in the next DeFi report.
Yeah, and stories about anything, whether it's about student debt, it's about investing, it's about the workforce aspect, the grow aspect, gig work, whatever you want to share. Let's benefit each other as we go forward.
Oh, I also forgot to ask if you also want to join the Grow waitlist. A link down below will be listed in the comments section or in the title section, wherever it is. Please do register, and if you're interested in investing in the Definance fund, feel free to also click that link down below in the comments section and apply. We'd love to have a conversation with you and hopefully get rid of student debt permanently in the United
Yeah,
States.
and we're working hard to do a soft launch for Grow in December. And once we get that going, then hopefully by early next year we'll do a full launch. But it's almost here, and we're
Mhm.
working hard to get it going.
Sure. All right. Well,
Bye bye.